Live from Stockholm, Sweden. This is ManDate, episode 77, with Con and Village, Mr. Jim Button. How are you today, Jim?
I'm great. How are you, Connor?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on the show and agreeing to be part of this MBA research on small business growth. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Jim, and tell us about Village and what you do for Village.
Sure. My name is Jim Button. I'm one of the co-founders of Village Brewery. There were 6 partners. We started the brewery. Our first beer came off the line in December 21st, 2011. We sold 30 kegs of beer that year, and we are now, as you can tell by the numbers, 3.5 years old, and are doing exceptionally well. We're having a lot of fun.
And you guys are based out of Calgary?
That's correct.
Tell us where do you fit in the beer world there in Calgary, Alberta? What are you guys in a niche market? Tell us a little bit more about your beer selection.
Well, Calgary and Alberta are probably every market's a unique market. I'll tell you why Calgary and Alberta are unique. We seem to be a bit of laggards as it relates to other brewing areas. Well, if you go down the west coast of the U.S., so you can go into places like Portland or San Diego, anywhere in Washington, and see so many beer companies, whether they're breweries or brew pubs or nano breweries or people talk a lot about beer there. And then you go to the west coast of Canada and BC, they've got like 70, 80, 90 breweries, brew pubs going on there now. You go out to Ontario and Quebec, and they've got large volumes. Even in the East Coast, they've got large volumes. Then you come to Alberta, and we have a gap, but we're catching up. In large part, the industry here is built a little differently. It's a deregulated market, so that the opportunity for people to get into the market from an import perspective is easy. And so we'll have about 2,500 beers on the shelf in Alberta, where in BC they will have 400 or 500 beers on the shelf, and in Ontario they have like about 900. Or it could be vice versa. It could be 900 in BC and 500 in Ontario. And so really easy to come into the market, and there used to be a rule here in Alberta where if you wanted to start a brewery, you had to show that you could brew 5,000 hectoliters, which is about $1 million, $2 million to actually put capital costs in to start. So there hasn't been a lot of breweries here. So combined with a whole pile of open market pressures and difficulty internally with our regulations, there hasn't been a lot of breweries. So recently they changed some laws to allow small breweries to open up, and we are now seeing some growth. So there's a bit of a craft beer explosion with various restaurants and bars and brew pubs, a very heavy focus on beer, and probably about 3 or 4 new breweries. So we started ours 3.5 years ago. The rules changed about a year and a bit ago, and so we've seen about 4 or 5 breweries come on board in Alberta in the last 6 months. So very unique market.
And how does Village sort of stand out against these other guys sort of popping up here now?
So I could talk about Calgary in that context. So we had the granddaddy of breweries. Ed McNally started a brewery in 1985. So that brewery's been around for a while. It was pretty new in for Canada. It was one of the leading ones. I think Granville Island might have been the first one, and Big Rock was up there in the early days. And then about 7 years later, Wild Rose started. So they're about 18 years old now, or maybe more than 7. Yeah, so they're about 18 years old now. And those 2 are the breweries in Calgary that have been around for a long period of time. We were the next brewery that came. So after an 18 or 16-year wait, another brewery came. That was us. And we consider ourselves less, well, this is going to sound really weird. We have 2 products. One is making beer. The the other is the product of gathering people around community. So we actually put the gathering people around community as one of our core. It's who we are, why we are. When we started the brewery, there were the 6 partners. We did quite a bit of work at the beginning. We had a collective 150 years of beer experience amongst us, and we didn't just want to put together another brewery. We wanted to actually be more meaningful, do something, almost create a movement. And
yeah.
So when we started the brewery, it was an imperative that all our focus be on, the majority of our focus be on the development of building a community. And so that's, I think, what would set us apart is that we consider ourselves equal parts beer making and friend making, more so than the other people out there in the market. It's almost it's the first thing we think of versus the second thing we think of. We think about gathering people around community at the very beginning versus using something like that to actually market the beer itself.
So could you elaborate on that a little bit more? In what sort of ways are you connecting or building a community? What are you doing differently that these other guys aren't?
Well, it's the nuance. It's that we would all probably do a lot of the same things. We'd get involved in community. We'd support community. It's the degree and the nuance of the primary function. So, in the simplest term, 10% of our bottom line is going back to community, which is a very high number. And when we built the brewery, the 6 brewers had to make a decision on how to finance the brewery. And we were going to do it ourselves with help of a bank. But then we thought that maybe we would try a different approach, that if we were actually honest in our desire to grow a community-based brewery, then probably the best thing to do would to be involved in the community. So we took a portion of the brewery, 40%, and put it up as a limited partnership and invited people in Calgary that were doing things to make Calgary a better place. So by invite only, we went out and found what we're calling beer barons, people to invest in the brewery, but they had to be people that were doing something. Whether they're somebody like Brad, starting Social Venture Partners, or Terry, who's CEO of Arts Development, or Jim, who started an art gallery, the Esker Foundation, and the whole art block. So people that were doing things like that were interesting and engaging. And when we put our collective minds together, we can actually make something happen fairly quickly and in a deep way. So we've got all these people out there that are on a daily basis working towards a common goal, which is making Calgary a better place. And we focus primarily on the arts, but we're also in a bunch of other areas. We've done some work in sustainability, we've done work in civic engagement, we've done some work in cultural enhancement. There's all sorts of really interesting activities we do. We've probably been part of, certainly close to 700-800 events now. I keep spewing off numbers in that category, but I should go back and check because it's probably much higher events that we participate in. And when we say we participate, it's more than just supplying beer for an event. It's we'll sit on a board, or we'll help build the event, or we'll send our people and participate in a meaningful way. And those are the bigger differences. They're nuances, but they're fairly important nuances.
Yeah. No. That makes a big difference. That's very interesting. Could you tell us more about what sort of volume you guys do? How many different brands of beer that you guys have, and how far you guys are exporting them? Is it only Calgary? Is it Alberta? How far does Village spread?
When we built the brewery, we had set an important philosophy we had was to stay small. And the reason why we chose that, and so to do that, we built a little box. put a box of Calgary, and then we put a box of 20,000 hectoliters. And we did that at the beginning, and we were very purposeful in doing so, because we knew that, in our experience, we knew that if you start worrying about volume and growth as your imperatives, then you start making bad decisions. We care more about margins, we care more about measuring our impact on the community. So those would be two more critical imperatives for us than it would be pure volume for volume's sake. And so by saying that we're going to stay in Calgary, it meant that we didn't get distracted by other markets. And when we said that we're going to stay small, we kept it 20,000 because there's a ceiling imposed by the Alberta government, the Liquor Control Board, that says that once you get over 20,000 hectoliters, your AGLC markup increases. And it just increased again in the latest budget. So right now we pay 20 cents a liter markup, and then it's going up to, it was 40 cents if you went over 20,000 hectoliters, and then it's going up, now it's gone up to 51 cents. So that's a significant increase. And it means that once you hit 20,000, it's very difficult to make any money again until you get upwards of 26, 27,000 hectoliters now. So you've got to jump, a significant jump. You've got to jump another 35%. And I'm making up numbers now in my head because I'm trying to do the math from 20 to 27. But you have to make a significant jump. So there's no real value in growing unless you're going to be able to grow really fast. And to grow really fast means that you start losing some of the, potentially start losing some of the values that you built into the company. And so we built that box for ourselves. We've come to the conclusion that the two important ones, being the impact on community and the margins, can be maintained, or we believe they can be maintained as we continue to grow. So we've been very methodical in our growth, but I think we're going to say if the market is right, we'll go outside of Calgary now, because we feel comfortable knowing that we have a good foundation to do that. So we're available outside of Calgary, but we're not marketing it. It's just available. We're really focusing our efforts still on Calgary.
Okay. Now, when it comes to something like your managerial strategy, you talked a lot about you and these 6 other co-founders. Is it sort of how does the decision-making process work? Is it one of the co-founders that's the CEO type thing, or is it everyone has a say and then you guys all make a collective decision, or how does you tell us more about the managerial strategy?
It's completely flat. So the partners, when we started the brewery, we were able to actually move very fast because we had 6 partners that were very different in their skill sets and experiences. So I'm 25 years marketer, worked for lots of companies, different agencies, so lots of marketing experience. Tom has been in the restaurant and bar industry, beer industry, for 25 years. So from the sales and community side, he's got that figured out. Stefan had been involved in, well, he started on the bottling line at Big Rock and then got his MBA, and he's got a lot of business experience. He's the MBA kind of guy on the business analytics and operational side. We've got Tim, who's the CFO of a brewery at one point and has started up many companies. So he's got the finance side. And we've got Larry, who's been a 45-year brewer. So he's got all the brewing and production expertise. And then you've got Alan and Rob, who are a single partner. Those guys have taken apart breweries and reassembled breweries around the world. So we've got the operations, the finance, the community, the marketing, the sales, business, and brewing all wrapped up. So when we started the brewery, I would go off and do my part and come back in, and we would have these meetings, and I'd say, here's what I've done. They would say, well, here's what I've done. Only when there was a really big decision to be made did we put it forth and say, okay, what do we collectively want to do on this? We left each other alone and trusted each other to actually make the decisions. And because we had very highly qualified guys, we were able to just operate that way. And we still continue to operate that way today. A lot of it's based on trust. We've subsequently have hired a gentleman, Steve, to put in he's got a role as our business manager, but he's got a day-to-day operation because a lot of our partners we have other things going on. So Steve's in there now, operating as the layer between day-to-day management and managing us on our day-to-day operations as we are impacting the brewery. So it's a really flat, simple organization. Everybody has their areas of expertise. Bigger decisions, we come together, and we very much believe in giving our staff autonomy to do what they need to do. We've hired them for a reason, let them do it. And our biggest challenge is to get out of the way on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. Do you think that's been part of your success? Is that you guys each all bring your own special area of expertise to the table, and you guys sort of just almost leave each other alone, like you said, let each of the guys do what they're good at? Do you think that sort of led to your success in your 3.5 years?
Absolutely. It helped that they're all experts. I can't say that would work in every small business enterprise, and maybe we got lucky, but the guys that were making those decisions were the best in the industry. It's like, so it was a very strong group. So it certainly led to our success, and it is the reason why we're doing well, and it's the reason I don't think we've ever had, we have disagreements. There's partners that I'm always on the opposite side of in terms of decisions, but the respect that we have is, if I'm on the opposite side, they'll say, Jim, you're crazy, but you seem to be doing good so far, so good luck with that, and here we go, right? So even if we don't agree with each other, the person that's got the experience is still given the latitude to go ahead.
Now, do you think this sort of setup, this flat hierarchy, is going to stay the same as the company grows? Do you think you can still maintain this level of success with this managerial strategy as you get bigger and bigger and bigger?
Absolutely. It's going to get easier because we'll probably get more and more removed as more and more staff take on different roles. And our tasks are changing. It's very different starting a brewery, coming up. I'll speak from the lens of a marketing guy, and community guy. The starting up of a brewery and building the brand and building the identity and building all of the moving parts to create the story, let's call it, is very different than maintaining the story. It's very different than finding new ways to to maintain meaningfulness. Those are two different worlds. It's one thing to start it, another thing to keep it going, and it takes a different energy to do that. And now my responsibilities start changing in terms of, okay, if we are growing, if we continue to grow, how am I making sure it's still meaningful? That's very different than, hey, let's try this. It's brand new, because it was all brand new at that time. So I think our roles will be the same. I think what we're probably going to be working on will always be changing. So therefore, our paradigm, the way we have it, may shift in terms of functionality, but in terms of the way that we operate together, that's not going to change.
Okay. That's very interesting. Now, you spoke a little bit about your goals. Could you tell us what you guys see for Village in the future? Where do you guys see Village in 5, 10 years? What are some of your growth goals? I know you want them to stay small, but tell us more about some of your goals for the long term for Village.
So when I say we want to stay small, our stay small means staying small in how we think of ourselves.
Okay.
Growth will happen and can happen and will continue to happen, but I want us to stay small in mindset. I want to know that we're meaningful. So our long-term goals are never measured on, we talk about our growth not in terms of are we going to jump. We have those numbers. Let me step back. We have numbers that say what our projections are going to be every month and every week, and therefore we have them projected annually as well. So we do that. Let me step back and say we're not completely flying by the seat of our pants, but those are mainly, to be honest, those are mainly so that our guys that are making the beer know actually beer to make, so we don't run out of beer for our customers. And our customers are the guys selling it in liquor stores and bars and restaurants, because there's nothing worse as a partnership for them to run out of beer. If they have an empty tap, that means they're losing revenue. If they have an empty shelf, that means they're losing revenue. And so when we do those numbers, that's the primary function, is to manage that. And then the next step back is, do we have enough equipment? Do we have enough staff? Do we have, so all those things are all part of it. We have some growth figures, but they're not the primary. They're honestly not the primary number. The primary number is, what are we doing? What are we doing to make sure we're doing interesting stuff? Are our staff happy? Are the staff feeling like they're engaged in making decisions? And are they getting their growth opportunities? We are so over-indexed in how many brewers we have, but a big reason for that was Larry, when he decided he wanted to start a small brewery after being at a whole bunch of big breweries, was he wanted to mentor the next generation. So we have way too many brewers, but each one of them is learning how to brew, and each one of them is enjoying it, and each one's going to have a career. And as long as we can keep them at brewery at Village, we're happy. But if they happen to leave, then great. Larry's accomplished his goal of training a whole next generation of brewers. And so those are the things that are measured. Our growth, our long-term growth plans, Calgary is going to continue to grow. Our sales are going to continue to grow. I just don't know what numbers. I can't put, and I don't want to put numbers against it.
Okay. Well, could you talk about a little bit about some of the obstacles that may come in your way of achieving your growth goals, either internally within the company or externally in the market?
So, well, the first obstacle to growth so far has been us. We have, imagine somebody riding a horse and always pulling back on the reins. That's what we've been doing since day one. We could have easily doubled our volume by now, but I've chosen not. And because we wanted to be meaningful, we never wanted to run out of beer. I'm upset right now. We ran out of 12 packs, and it's making me absolutely infuriated because we don't do that, and we did it, and it was an oversight. And those types of things drive me nuts. So right now, we've been not opening up channels. We've not been opening up markets. We've not been pushing hard on sales in certain areas simply because we didn't want to grow too fast. And so when you ask the question, what's the first impediment for growth? It's us right now. We're trying to stay meaningful in our growth. The second challenge from our perspective, we're very excited about the increase in conversation around better beer and craft beer and beer in general. That's exciting for us, and so we're continuing to try to make the industry itself stronger. And what's holding us back as an industry is I think we have too much infighting. Big beer versus small beer, imports versus I would love to see less conversation around that, and us talk about why beer's got so many great moments and opportunities for people to get together and enjoy each other and make a better place. So That would be a next impediment. That's a 3,000. That's a 30,000 foot level answer.
Yeah.
The real simple stuff is beyond us slowing it down and the industry itself slowing itself down. Is our market for us is a very difficult one in Alberta because there's no real reason for me to want to grow. If I go over 20,000 hectoliters, I don't have any upside for a considerable time after that. I have to make such a big jump that the amount of money I'll lose just by growing isn't worth it. So if as partners we sit down in a room and say, okay, we want to grow, then we've got to grow really fast. And that's dangerous for me in terms of my belief system. So our regulatory challenges right now are such that it's great being under 20,000 hectoliters, but there's no reason for me to want to jump over 20,000. The government is treating us, and I'm sure in their minds, they're doing us great favors, and they are doing us great favors by holding the 20 cent line in terms of an AGLC markup at 20,000 hectoliters. The unfortunate part is it's telling me I don't need to jump past it. So that would be, from a regulatory perspective, a challenge. The next one would be the fact that we have an open market here in Alberta, and there is so much competition from elsewhere. That small brewer markup means that anybody that's a small brewer below 20,000 hectoliters anywhere in Canada can get that same markup. So they don't have to be from here. They'll get benefits from their own market and then have the opportunity to sell their beer cheaper here, and creates a bit of a downward pressure on price. It creates a downward pressure in terms of ability to be competitive. So those two factors from a regulatory perspective make it challenging. The fact that it's an open market is great if you have the capacity to sell to a whole bunch of different, because you're essentially selling to a whole bunch of different people. You go to Ontario, for example, you'll sell to the LCBO, you get into the LCBO, and then you've got distribution. It's got its own pitfalls. It's difficult to get into the LCBO. As I said before, there's only, 400 or 900, I can't remember which one is which. Beers on the shelves out there, SKUs on the shelf. So it's hard to get in. But once you get in, you've got distribution. Here, you have to have the infrastructure to be able to sell to every single individual operation, as well as to the chains. So those are the bigger challenges. We're not panicking about any of them because we're not too concerned about major growth. But if I was an operation that was built to grow rapidly, those would all be big issues for me.
Okay, great. Well, Jim, that's all the questions I have. Even more than helpful in answering them. If there's anything else you wanted to add or say, or even ask me, this would be the perfect time to do it.
What are you going to do after you graduate?
After I graduate, that's a very good question. I'm graduating in June, and I'm moving back to Calgary at the end of June, and I'll be looking for work. I got something potentially on the go right now, but other than that, moving back home and starting to grow my career.
Oh, good for you. Well, you're coming back to Calgary in an interesting time. The city needs some diversification, so hopefully you can bring back some other thoughts and help us grow in different ways.
Yeah, that's the plan, because before I worked in oil and gas, and now I'm moving back, and it looks like I won't be able to work in oil and gas if I want to. So I'm going to have to branch out a bit, and I think I'm bringing back a different perspective on things. So I'm really looking forward to bringing back what I've learned during my time here.
Different approaches. I think they're suffering from their approach that they've used for the last 50 years. So bring a 2015 perspective to them. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah. That's the plan, Jim. That's the goal. Well, here, listen. We'll just finish up this recording here. I wanted to thank you for participating in this MBA research, and I I wish you all the best in the future. This has been ManDate with Con and Village, Mr. Jim Button.